So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's Art of Lighting with the Light Doctor himself. Hi, Simon. How are you?
I'm very well, mate. And you?
Yeah, not bad. We know we're okay because we've been chatting. We've been chatting behind the scenes, which is good. I know you're eager to get back to work, and it's kind of feels like I've been doing a bit of both for the academy. But yeah, I'm very well, mate. It's just, I think it's just ironic that the sun's blaring, isn't it? Just kind of like everything at the minute. But anyway, enough of that. Thrilled to have you back. We've had a great run of these webinars. If you haven't seen them, all of the recordings of Simon's presentations are available to be watched on the Photographer Academy. Simon, before we get into what we're going to cover today, I still love this very cool image of you. They can all make their mind up what you look like underneath there. Um,
It's less scary than my normal face, mate. It's fine.
um, Simon, tell us a little bit about you, the Light Doctor, what's available from you, how to get in touch with you, how to work with you, and how you basically do what you do.
Well, I think I'm nearly at the point where I've forgotten how I know what I do. I haven't done it for a while. Basically, most people will know me as the face of the Flash Centre and Elinchrom in the UK. I've been in the industry for over 30 years. I know I don't look old enough, but somewhere around about 30 years now. Started off in retail, and worked my way up through the ranks, and I've seen it from a ProLab side where I used to hand print and process film. That's where my knowledge came from originally. Really was the analog side of it, shooting everything on film and transparency, 5:4, architectural stuff that I used to shoot. And I've been a wedding and social photographer for 20 years. I retired probably 7 or 8 years ago now. Never want to see another wedding in my life. Yeah, I just love the industry. I'm very passionate about the industry, and I like giving information back to people from my knowledge. So I run one-to-one lighting sessions, group lighting sessions, theme days, all sorts, all through the Light Doctor. But we also do Flash Centre events as well, which are a different organisational point of view, where we might have two groups of 10 people, two different sort of setups within a location. So it's all about learning. We try and pass on as much knowledge as possible through all of our specialists, and working with other ambassadors alongside other photographers, and we sometimes do sort of two photographers per day with groups of people. It's whatever people want. If there's a demand for it, we'll put it on, and we love passing knowledge backwards and forwards. So.
Brilliant, mate, as we are today. So before I give you the screen, which I'm about to do, just to remind you all, please, any questions you have for Simon, put them in the question panel. And also, if you've got any questions for me for the Academy, do so as well. Simon, I'm going to make you the presenter. So you should be getting that request now.
Okay, I'm going to... Should be able to see my screen
Seeing
now.
it nice and clear, mate. I can hear you loud and clear, so I'm going to go quiet. It's all yours, mate.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining today. Again, I'm flattered that there's been quite a lot of demand to have me on once again and listen to me waffle, especially when it's 26 degrees outside my house at the moment. I think I'd rather be sat in the garden than listening to me. But hey, guys, thank you very much for the support. There's a little bit about me on the screen, so you can see what I do. Most of the images that I'll show you today are either shot on my Pentax 645 or my K1 Mark II. I am a Pentax ambassador, so that's what I shoot after shooting Canon for nearly 30 years. Made a big change and made the investment into 645 and medium format, because I used to shoot weddings on medium format film. I love the format. It's absolutely superb. And it's now quite affordable for people as well. When you look at some of the prices of the medium format kit with Fuji and Pentax and everybody else that's coming out with these systems, it's within reach of most people and sort of very similar price to a DSLR. proud also to be a Photographer Academy Master, and love going to the Photographer Academy in Wales, and helping out and teaching whatever I'm asked to do, really. So I've done this a little bit differently today. Rather than put an image up like I have done for the last 2 or 3 of these, and then a lighting diagram, I've just put an image on the screen. I'm going to talk you through some different types of light. You know, light, believe it or not, isn't just light. It has different characteristics in the way it works. It has different characteristics in the way in which the light falls off. And I've just put 10 images together, not necessarily high-end award-winning pictures. I just want to show you the different styles and types of light that are available to you, and how important it is. I'm a big believer in getting light for light correct. So what I mean by that is, you know, if I'm in a very, very diffused light location, and what I mean by that is that you know, there is sun somewhere up there, but it's diffused by clouds. A friend of mine calls it God's softbox. You can literally have this beautiful soft light coming down from the sky. Now, if you use a speed light or something quite a distance away from the subject, it's a very, very small light source. It's going to give you very hard shadows. So the smaller the light source in relation to the subject, the harder the light is going to be. So your shadow and highlight transitions will change. And it's a case of matching everything, because anybody can set up a studio light outside or a flash gun outside and take an image. And normally it's very obvious that it's taken with flash. So I like to make things as natural as possible to complement the light that's around me, rather than artificially showing that there was a flash involved. So to try and keep it as natural as possible, the right modifier choice is key. What I'll do is I'll go through these images and explain the difference between hard and soft light, what modifiers were used. So although you haven't got a lighting diagram, some of these images, if you follow me, you'll have seen before anyway, but it's just a bit of an insight as to why I lit them the way I did, and just to give you a real sort of insight of how these images are put together, and my thought process as we're shooting. So the first image, those of you that have been to the Photographer Academy in Barry will probably have met Kelsey. She's a superb model, she's great, and I am absolutely in love with Mark's big black leather chair that he has in his studio. So if I can get it into a shot sometimes, I will always use it. So the idea behind this was to give a really kind of feminine feel. This big dress is great. It's very, very colourful, and there's a couple of ways we could have lit this. If Kelsey wasn't so feminine looking, we could have lit this in a different way. So we could have made the dress really, really pop out. We could have made it look a lot shinier, a lot more metallic, if you like. So again, using a very small light source would have given me that hard specular light that would have made this pop out. It's a nice subtle image, and the shadow transition you can see is a big light source. The shadow transition, you can see the edges of the shadows are very, very soft. Therefore, the bigger the light source, the softer, the more natural the light's going to look. So this was using a 135 centimeter octagonal softbox, camera right, and it's about 45 degrees. It's not quite Rembrandt, but it's not far off. We can see that there's a little triangle on the shadow side of her nose, which is representative of the Rembrandt lighting. And there is a separation light, which is a strip light, just very carefully controlled onto the back side of her hair to give some separation from the background, because although the chair is there, I didn't want it to feature massively in the shot. So there's an idea that there is a chair there. but it's getting the light in the right place so that you don't start picking up highlights off the shiny leather and everything else. It's all about the control of light and where you put that light and how the light interacts. So like skin, the leather is skin anyway, but it's obviously quite reflective, and skin can be very, very reflective. Kelsey's got a nice sort of olivey skin tone in this shot, so it's got a nice subtle, very soft edge light to it, which just gives the idea that it's very feminine, it's just very relaxed. And it was a shot that I had in mind after seeing the dress and the chair, and we were making a video, and it was lovely to be able to put my ideas into practice, because generally I don't have time when I'm teaching to start playing with light, and I need to get the shot and that's it. But this was a series of 2 or 3 that I shot that day, and it was great to have some time to play. But you could just see how soft the hair looks and her face and everything else. So that's a big light source for you on that one. So going on to the next image, this is shot obviously outside on location. This was for the ELB 1200 video that we made for Ellincrom. We started off on the beach, and there's a picture coming up later on that actually shows the beach shot. And we're going to talk about not only hard and soft light today, but also flash durations and high sync, and what the difference is, because people tend to get very confused about this. Now, again, to keep this as natural as possible, we're obviously under a very thick canopy of trees. You can see the light that's dappled on the wall. This was actually a really dark area, and you'll see on the next shot actually how dark it was. I've put the softbox up quite high, coming through the leaves on the tree, so that the light source itself, although it's nice and soft, has actually mimicked the sun. So the dappling is actually created by the flash being blocked by the leaves and everything else, and giving you these little highlights and low lights all over the subject, and the dappled effect on the wall behind. So you can see the effect that I've gone for to try and keep it as natural as possible. If I'd have brought the softbox down a little bit further, so it wasn't covered by the trees, what you'd have ended up with is just a shot that looked artificially lit. But I'm hoping from what you see on here, you can see that it looks, you know, as natural as it possibly could do using an artificial light source. It's very, very big in comparison to our subjects. We've got very, very soft shadow transitions. You can see on her right side of the face where the light is coming and how soft edged that shadow is. So it's a really, really big, soft, natural light source. And to be honest, if I was outside on the beach, we'd have shot this completely differently, because it would have been a very hard and broken sun, and the shadows would have been a lot harder naturally with the sun. So, you know, underneath this tree, it was more diffused. The light was a lot more diffused and a lot more subtle. Therefore, it's almost a fill flash type thing to recreate what is already around, if that makes sense. So let's move on to the next image, which is the same girl, exactly the same location, but a different lighting pattern. So you can see really this is what we were dealing with. These are big sort of, it looks like a viaduct. I don't know what it is. Jay's probably a better qualified person to tell us where this place is and what the bridge is. But basically this was to show, again, soft light, but not dappled through the trees. And what has happened is the light has been feathered off to the side to hit the subject, but not the wall behind. So it's all about control, and you'll hear this a lot today. I love controlling light and where it goes. So again, it's a big, big light source. Look at the shadow on the right side of her nose, how very soft edge it is compared to some of the other images you'll see later on. And obviously, whatever sticks out will cast a shadow. Whatever sinks in will be perfectly lit. So it's skimming the light across the subject to keep it looking as natural as possible. This was to show obviously the eye makeup. I do believe the videos for this are actually on the Photographer Academy, the ELB 1200 location video. I think there's one for the studio and one for the location stuff. And this works for me. This you know, the light quality is nice. I didn't want to darken off the background completely, so we've used a longer shutter speed to drag in some of the ambient light from behind, but controlling exactly how much light we do bring in. We don't want it to sort of overpower the image. And the first thing you look at on this image is obviously the subject. So job done as far as I'm concerned. So let's move on to another location shot. This is a bit different from me, and it's not technically perfect by any stretch, but hey, it's one of those images. I just want to show you what you can actually achieve. Now, this was using a fairly large softbox from the front, 45 degrees, if not 90 degrees to the subject, washing the light across from camera right to highlight not only the subject, but obviously the horse's face. Yes, the tail's chopped off. That's why it's not technically correct, but it gives you a real kind of idea of what we can create when we're out on location. Now, this was shot up in Worcester. It's a place called Chateau Impey. Absolutely fantastic venue. Beautiful grounds, and the day we went, typical English weather, grey, overcast, not a hint of sunlight coming through the clouds, so very, very diffused. So washing the light across with a big light source has given me this natural kind of daylight look on the subject. The horse to me was kind of secondary, and we've got enough light coming across the horse, and you'll see the flare from the back in the top left corner. This is actually created with a very small reflector mounted on the front of a ELB 1200 with a CTO gel, which is an orange colored gel, to give me almost the idea, or give you almost the idea, that this was shot as the sun was setting, maybe late one afternoon, and give you an idea. So what we can do is we can paint light into subjects or into images to make them look completely different than they actually were in real life. And this is all about, you know, this is a £2 bit of gel stuck on the front of the flash head. If I hadn't have put the gel on, we'd have got a very white light coming across from the back, and it wouldn't have given the same effect. So there is very, very little editing on this picture. It's really just to show, and this was sort of an educational image for me, to show people what you can add in to an image to make it more interesting, rather than putting up with, you know, the standard English weather that we do have. This was up very high. It was probably coming down from, I don't know, 10, 12 feet above. It wasn't much out of camera shot. I think the horse was more interested in that. So it's looking at the light out the corner of its eye rather than looking directly at me. But I think it works. I think it's okay. But again, this is about lighting patterns and how to add in effects rather than spending hours later doing this in Photoshop, which I know I could have done. I know I can start adding effects and stuff. Photoshop is that good that you can start making a very ordinary image look really, really nice. But why do that when it's going to take you half an hour, 40 minutes to get this image right, when you can do 99% of it in camera? And this is the discipline that comes from shooting film, because it makes you think. And also, going back to medium format for me has actually made me realize that you think more when you're shooting a larger format. For some reason, you tend to break the image down in your head, you tend to look at things, and you work out what's best, rather than firing off 5 or 6 shots at different apertures and bracketing like mad. Take your time. You know, an extra minute of stood there thinking about stuff, getting it right in camera is going to save you a long, long time afterwards in post-production. So there you go. That's just something I'm showing you just to give you an idea of what you can add to an image if you haven't got a lot around you in terms of beautiful light. So the next image I'm going to show you is using a very hard light source, and the reason I wanted to shoot this as a hard light source was to show definition. So let me put the image up on the screen. This is using what we call a butterfly style lighting setup. So the light would normally come directly above and fall down across the subject. It gives the little butterfly shaped shadow under the nose. This obviously is flipped it round, and what I've done, instead of putting the shadow under the nose, I've put the shadow under the muscles to give them more definition. You can see the control of where the light goes. So you've got highlights on the top which bulge the muscles out. I mean, this girl is unbelievable in terms of muscle definition anyway, but you know, this is a one light setup. The big hard shadows on the back wall show you that this is a hard small light source in comparison to our subject. If I'd have put a 135 softbox or even a meter softbox above our subject falling down, so the light came down across the back or washed across the back downwards, the shadows wouldn't be there. And I think the shadows for me add another dimension to the picture. It gives it some three-dimensionality, and it just shows what you can do. So she's pretty impressive without being lit, but actually carving shadows and highlights into the muscle definition, it make it all pop out. It makes it more defined, and she absolutely loved these. My experience of fitness and bodybuilder types are, you know, they love themselves a little bit anyway, and if you can make them look even better, then they're going to be your friend for life. So we did a whole series of shots of this girl. She owns this gym and her business partner, and it was all for profile pictures on their website and stuff like that. But you know, these type of images she loved, and she was sharing them all around Instagram and Facebook and everything. And it was quite interesting the amount of people inquiring about shoots afterwards. But this isn't what I do. I'm not a working photographer. Although I work for Ellen Cromwell, I shoot stuff. You know, I'm not a professional photographer. I don't make a living out of this. This is just me using my capabilities and my experience to produce images to teach people. So I enjoy doing this. And yeah, technically the bar's not straight. I could have, you know, leveled all of this up. But this isn't about the image. This is about the lighting techniques and how you can carve shapes into people and make them more interesting. So let's go to another image using hard light, and it's probably good to know that this was actually shot with a beauty dish, this one, with a grid on it to control how the light falls down, to give a little bit of spill onto the background, but not too much. So if we go to this next one, this is using the minimum amount of kit possible. Now, the lighting and the skin looks quite soft, but if you look at the edge of the shadow that's cast by the nose, it's a very, very hard shadow. And this is because it's a smaller light source. This is a 16 centimeter Brolly reflector. So it's the cheapest bit of kit you can put onto the front of any light. And the light was probably 4 foot away from her, very slightly feathered across the face. So we've highlighted some of the background, but we haven't really gone over the top. There's an idea that there's something there. It fades off the other side of face because the hair and the face is blocking the light, but it just gives a bit more depth to the image. You can see by the tiny cat's lights of the eye how small the light source is. But by having the light source in close, it obviously makes it bigger than it would be 6 foot away. Therefore, it gives a much softer appearance to the skin. And luckily, this girl had beautiful skin anyway. I thought she had a really, really great look, very sort of Latino looking. And she was up for anything for us trying different lighting techniques and things like that. But look at the shadow under her chin that's cast over her neck. Look how sharp edged the shadow is, the nose shadow. So this is using very, very small light sources to create some sort of dramatic drop off and different effects. So I'm going to skip past this one and go to our next one, which is using a bigger beauty dish. It was a 70cm beauty dish, and it was in very, very close. Now, this shot is probably 6 or 7 years old. It's not one of my most favorite images, and technically, again, it's not perfect, but it's a massive, great big softbox with the diffusers taken off. So if you look at the catch light in her eye, you can actually see the veins of the arms of the softbox in the catch light, which makes it look. Sorry if you heard that police car go past. I can't do anything about that one. There is veins, there's structure to it, and it makes the catch light look a little bit more interesting. And you can see that there's a more specular light. So although we've taken the covers off, the light is no more hard or soft than it would be with the covers on. It's just not diffused anymore. So you've got a highlight on the top of the cheekbone, you've got shine in the hair because the light's not diffused, so we're still going to get this sort of glistening effect on the hair. She just dyed it this very odd color, but the light, because it was contrasty, actually picked it up. When I put the diffuser on it, the hair shine disappeared. It went very matte looking and looked a little bit uninteresting to me. But you can see how soft the light is, because again, look how soft the shadow is coming down from her nose. It's all a case of making it more feminine. She's a very girly girl anyway. She's actually a makeup artist, not a model. So it was a case of making her look as feminine as possible, using as big a light source as possible. But with the covers off, we increase a little bit of specularity to the image, and I think it works. So let's move on. So we've covered soft and hard light, diffused and specular light. I'm going to go to another one, which is again Kelsey. And this was shot again for, I believe, the ELC 500 Elinchrom head, which was released just before we all went into lockdown. And I believe the videos again are on the Photographer Academy. And this was showing flash duration. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about flash duration because people tend to get very confused. The most common thing I have asked is, I want to freeze motion in my shots. I need high sync or high speed sync. No, you don't. High sync is a term that's used for anything above 125th of a second, which is your standard camera synchronization speed with your flash. We all know we can go from 125th down to as low as possible or as slow as possible, and the flash will still sync, no problem at all. If we go above 1/25th of a second, the shutter is obviously open for a lot less, therefore we reduce the ambient light that comes into the camera. So when people ask me whether they want to freeze action and they want to shoot high sync, I have to explain to them that actually to freeze action in an image, even at a 30th of a second, all you need is a flash with a very fast flash duration. And by that I mean it ignites, it peaks, and it extinguishes as fast as physically possible. Now, Elinchrom, because they use a what they call a full flash curve in a lot of their technology up until recently, we've never been known for massively high speed flashes. So, you know, we can have a 6,000th of a second, which generally, if you've got the control of the ambient in the studio, is actually okay. This shot is about probably 10-12,000th of a second. So we've frozen, but not completely frozen, the strands of hair. There's a video that explains this on the Photographer Academy and on the Flash Center YouTube channel. It's all about how fast that flash fires and extinguishes to give you that sharpness in the image. So that's what the flash duration does. It's freezing the action, and high sync, which is the next shot I'll show you, is all about reducing the ambient light. So the longer the shutter speed, the more ambient light we can bring into the frame. The quicker the shutter speed, the less ambient we bring into the frame. So we darken the background, we lose that ambient light. So this is flash duration. So you can see that the strands of hair, we could have got up to a 20,000th of a second flash duration and made all of that pin sharp. But I don't think it works when you've got a fan coming from one side, blowing the hair strands around. I want to show that they're moving. I don't want to show that they're absolutely perfectly still. If I'd have put a slower flash duration on, the hair would have been a lot more blurred. It would have given more idea that the hair was moving around in the shot. But this was a happy medium for me. This was showing movement, but it's still quite sharp in certain areas. So it's frozen the action, but we still got movement to show it's moving, rather than somebody's just hairsprayed it like that. So that's flash duration, freezing motion within images with the flash, not the shutter speed. Now, if I move to the next image, this is high sync. So the day we shot this, you'll see if you go back and watch the videos on the ELB 1200 location video, the day was very, very similar as it was today. It was absolutely blistering hot in Barbados, and we were shooting this down on the beach and basically wanted to drop the ambient light. So what I've done is I've shot this, I believe off the top of my head, this was about 1,000th of a second shutter speed. My flash was fired. I've got a Rembrandt style lighting pattern. It was actually set up for loop to start with, but because of the way she moved and put her head down, it became a Rembrandt style pattern. You see that by the little triangle on her left side of her face as you look at her. And again, it shows the eye makeup and everything else. But this shot was mainly to show high sync, and we can drop the ambient light. We retain a lot more of the blue in the sky, and we've darkened the pebbles on the beach, which were very, very light grey, very similar to her dress. And it all kind of blended in, but by increasing the shutter speed, we don't get this washed out look of the sky. If you shot this at 1/25th outside, you'd have got a white sky. Because at 1/25th, it's quite a slow shutter speed in general terms. Therefore, it's absorbed all that bright sunlight. So by speeding the shutter speed up, we don't record as much ambient light, therefore it goes darker, and she then pops out of the image and makes her look a lot more three-dimensional than she would normally at 1/25th of a second. So I'm hoping that explains the difference between flash duration and high sync or high speed sync. They are two completely different things, and there is an argument to say that you can freeze action with high speed sync. Because you're shooting at a much faster shutter speed, so you're relying on the shutter speed to freeze the action, not the flash. But in general terms, flash duration freezes motion, high sync reduces the ambient light that's coming through into your shutter box. So I hope that's a little bit of a lesson that you can get your teeth into and start practicing. Even if you shot this outside at a 2/50th of a second, it would have been a lot better than 1/25th. And go try it. When you're using flash outside, ambient is controlled by shutter speed, and exposure on the subject is controlled by aperture. So go outside, set something up. If you've got a high sync system or something that's enables you to shoot high sync, try it. Start off at a 30th of a second or even a 15th of a second, and work your way up and go up in stop increments and just see the difference of what it makes. You'll be quite amazed at the different results. And just because a lot of the Elinchrom system will sync at 8,000th of a second, you don't need to use 8,000th of a second. If I'd have used 8,000th of a second on this, it would have looked like absolute nighttime from behind. We'd have lost everything and probably not complemented the image at all. But have a play, see what you think. It's quite a straightforward science when you look at it. The next shot again is high sync, and this was shot, I think some of you will have seen this if you read the last lighting edition of the magazine. It was shot in Italy. And I think we touched on this a while ago, but again, it's a high sync image. Now, this on my Pentax 645 is actually shot at 4,000th of a second, because it's the maximum shutter speed on a medium format, or my medium format camera. So 4,000th of a second is obviously very quick. Now, the sun you can see coming in from the very top left of the frame. The sun is that bright that even at 4,000th of a second, it's created this beautiful natural rim light behind our subject. It's highlighted the hair, it's highlighted the top of the neck and the shoulder, and even on the inside of her arm, the nearest one to you, there's a rim light down the very edge of her arm. The background was bushes, there's a railing, there was a street light, there was cars, but I've darkened everything down using the shutter speed, but controlling it enough so that we still retain this rim light, which is exactly what I'd expect to see if I was looking at this girl just stood there without my camera in my hand. The light is coming from camera right, and you can see by the nose shadow it's set up in a loop lighting type scenario. It was a 70cm deep octagonal softbox, so quite a small light source, but because it's in so close, it makes it quite soft. So the shadow transition is quite soft. There is still a lot of detail there. You can see the catch lights in the eye. Generally, if you'd have shot this without flash, obviously the catch lights wouldn't have been there because the sun's behind her. So it's adding in and using to your advantage that the surroundings and the ambient light, and matching light for light to make everything look as natural as possible. So we all know this was shot with flash because the sun's coming from behind. The soft edge shadow on her face doesn't quite match the shadow on the ground. The shadow on the ground is a bit harder edged because obviously the sun is my light source for that. The sun is a massive light source, but it's 93 million miles away, so it's a point source of light. And where my flash will come across the front, and it's a small light source, the flash drops off. So if you imagine the flash coming out of a softbox, in the middle, it's going to be the brightest part. As it starts to get towards the edge and further past the edge, the flash will drop off. Sunlight doesn't do that. So what I mean by that is if I'd have metered this on her face, let's say my meter reading was, I don't know, 5.6. By the time we reach her chest, my light meter or light drop off would have reduced by at least half a stop, by a waist 3/4 of a stop, and by a knee a stop, stop and a half, by her feet possibly even 2 stops. So the light drops off when you're shooting with flash, whereas the sun, even though it's a very, very tiny point source of light in the sky, if I was only lighting her with daylight, from the top of her head to her feet would be exactly the same exposure. So you wouldn't get that drop off that flash suffers from. So again, it's controlling where the light goes, making sure that you've got the highlighted area where you want it, and the flash then drops off down so that your eye isn't automatically drawn to her waist or the bottom of the dress. You want your eye to be drawn to exactly where you want it to be drawn, and in this case it's the face. So lighting for the subject and lighting for your surroundings is obviously going to be the way to go, and using the correct light source is going to give you this balance to make it look as natural as possible. So there's the 10th image. I really hope that that's been helpful. If there's any questions, I'm really happy to answer them. You can drop me messages, you can ask whatever you need, and I'll be happy to answer them. And if you don't already follow me, please give us a like on the social media channels that you can see there. And I'll be putting some other bits and pieces up. I think I've got a live video coming up next week, balancing daylight with flash. And then the following week, I'm going to do a high sync video as well. So you can have a look and see what I do live on social media.
Brill. Well, I've got some questions for you, mate. So, lots of praise. Let me just sift through the praise that we constantly get for you. Yeah, it's like somebody thinks you actually know what you're doing,
I
isn't it?
think you made that up.
I don't. I don't know. It's brilliant. Right, let's have a look. Where am I? Okay, that's a good question. I'm going to hang on to that one for a minute. Oh, do you know what? Let's cover it straight away. It did come in just in that last bit. Can you just clarify for us and me as well? I was getting confused. High speeds, high sync, and high speed sync, and the differences.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Right, so high speed sync is something that related to what a flash gun did. So there are two types of technology in any flash head. There is a full flash curve where the light ignites, it peaks, and it extinguishes. There is also what flash guns use, and some of our newer technology and some of other manufacturers out on the market, we use a circuit called IGBT, which is short for a very long series of words, which I won't bore you with. But what happens is that an IGBT circuit actually pulses light to make up the whole exposure. You can't see it, but it pulses light to create that overall exposure. With high sync, that's Elinchron's own version, which is why when you buy a Pro or high sync trigger, we have what we call an ODS setting, which is overdrive sync. And we move the peak of the flash by delaying the trigger telling the flash to fire. We move the peak of the flash into the middle of the exposure, so or the peak of the flash exposure. So if you imagine a high sync head has a flash duration of about 500th of a second, it's a very, very long flash duration. Some units, as I explained before, have a 20,000th of a second flash duration. So if we put this into context, we have a 500th of a second flash duration, but we have an 8,000th of a second shutter speed. It's obviously quite a precise science to get that peak of the power of the flash bang in the middle of that 8,000th of a second shutter speed. Otherwise, you start losing power. You're catching the flash on the way up or the way down. So the difference basically is high sync is Elinchron's full flash curve technology, high sync technology. IGBT is HSS or high speed sync. The ELC 500 and 125 TTL units that we released and the ELB 500 unit all run IGBT technology, which enables us to have high sync on the older system and HSS on the newer system. I hope that was as clear as mud and people understand.
I kind of almost got it, so I think you did pretty good because I'm rubbish, as you know. So, but no, the gentleman who asked it said brilliant, thank you. Right, where am I? Okay, we've had this before, but it's a good question. Do you use a light meter?
Always.
Good man. That was the right answer.
Always. And again, you know, that's discipline from film days. It's kind of my go-to thing. It's like when you get in the car, the first thing you do is put your seatbelt on. Well, the first thing I do when I get to location is get my light meter out and start taking readings, because as soon as I see a location, I see where the sun's coming from, I'm really interested from a completely sad, nerdy, geeky point of view, what light is available to me and what apertures I can shoot at, and you know, the best I can make of it. So having my light meter is absolutely crucial to me, and if I haven't got it, yeah, we can all put our finger in the air and guess, but I'd rather make sure that everything was right. And do you know what, even if it tells me that at 1/25 at 100 ISO it's f5.6, if I want to shoot at f4 or f8 to make things slightly different, then that's your license to do what you want. This is, you know, this is photography. We can all do what we want. But to give you a base point, I think it's a really, really important thing to have. So yeah, you'll always see me with the light meter, no problem at all.
Brill. So I've got a couple of, well, these are all advice now, really. Do you always use the additional, I presume the gentleman means the diffuser discs that come with the Elinchrom lights as well as the inner baffle, or do you adjust? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that is a good question. A lot of people undo their soft boxes and have these deflectors, we call them, which is, for those who don't know, is a little opaque disc that fits into the brolly shaft on a very small brolly arm, if you like. Go back to the days where we used to have beauty dishes with silver bits in the middle, so the light hits that disc, gets put back into the modifier and spread and use the complete surface of the modifier. The diffusion disc that comes with most of the Elinchrom softboxes, or did, you can buy them as separate items now, gives another level of diffusion. So if you want a really, really soft, natural light, you've got the two, the inner and the outer cover. You put the additional diffuser inside it. But sometimes I always got a bit of tin foil in my camera bag, and I sometimes, if I haven't got a silver deflector with me, I'll cover the translucent one in silver foil. I've got a couple that I've sprayed silver as well, which gives me another option. So you can shoot with the front diffuser off and just the inner and the disc inside. You can have both the covers off with just the disc, giving you a level of either diffused light through the opaque disc, or the silver disc if you want a more sort of specular contrasty light. But yeah, I like playing with the deflectors. I think they're really, really good. The most fatal mistake people make with those deflectors is they put the gold one in to warm stuff up. Now, I only ever use the gold one for shooting black or dark skin, because it tends to shoot quite cold as standard. So by putting that gold one in, it warms it up slightly and brings the skin back to its normal color. If you use somebody who's maybe a redhead or very fair skinned and you put the gold one in, you can make them look quite jaundiced. So you have to be very, very careful in how you use that. But no, that level of diffusion with the opaque disc is absolutely brilliant. And if you want that extra level of diffusion, and you always lose about a third of a stop as well with the three covers, yes, it's a great bit of kit and a good addition to any Elinchrom softbox, because you can make any Elinchrom softbox into a beauty dish just by putting that in and putting some silver foil over it.
Brill. A few more left for you, mate. Okay, going to start with this one. These are both similar, but they kind of lead on to each other. So, ladies asking for some basic information on starter kit for portrait photography. I did ask a follow-up question to see if there was any particular areas of portrait she was looking at, but just some examples of where to start with and what's available from you guys.
Okay, well, the most popular starter kit that we do is our D-Lite RX1. We do a two-head kit with little soft boxes, radio trigger, stands. We call it a studio to go. So basically you unbox it, add a model and a background, and away you go. That retails for less than 500 quid, which, to be fair, is probably less than most mainstream flash guns on the market these days, from Canon and Nikon and Sony and whatever, and gives you the scope to join the Elinchrom family, if you like, and then upgrade from there. The beauty of the D-Lite 1 is that, yes, it's only 100 watts at the top end, but it goes down to 5 watt seconds, so you can get the light down very, very low in power. You can move the light in just out of camera shot and use a fairly small softbox to create that lovely soft light, because you've made the light source big in comparison to the subject. So the D-Lite 1 gives you a lot of scope for studio portraiture. I know people have got inverters and they take them out on location as well and use them as fill flash. So I would look at the D-Lite 1. It basically gives you everything you need to start shooting, but also if you upgrade later on to bigger heads and stuff like that, everything you've invested in is the same amount, so it will fit the whole of the Elinchrom range, always has done and always will.
Brilliant, mate. Thank you. I just want to chip in there. Us as a studio, Mark Cleckland Photography, we've always favoured. Do you still do the umbrella kits? Because we favour the softbox anyway, or is it just the softbox kits now anyway?
It's just the softbox kits now, but to be honest, a lot of people buy the softbox kit. I think off the top of my head, and forgive me because I haven't been at work for a couple of months, 458 quid I think the two head set is, and it's about 30 quid for a twin umbrella set. So, you know, still for under 500 quid, you could buy your softbox kit and buy a couple of brollies to go with it.
Yeah, agreed. Hands down, you know, for us, it's always been the softbox kit, and then we've bought the additional brollies that we need. Brilliant. Okay, mate. So again, we're sticking with advice at the minute. So, gentleman has, I can answer this as well as you. We're both going to answer it. I've got the I don't know which one, but he's got a 2-light Elinchrom D-light kit.
Yeah.
Where's the best place to start getting help and advice on settings and positioning and lighting angles? Well, I'll leave you start and then I'll finish.
Well, you've got well, me, you've got the Photographer Academy, the Experience Group for photography training, but there's lots and lots of videos online if you want to just sit and watch YouTube and practice what you can see. But yeah, I mean, there is a vast wealth of information out there that you can go to. But if you want a one-on-one session or you want to come on a lighting course, then you or I can sort that for him, no problem at all.
Absolutely. I mean, the answer I was looking for, but we got there, was you and me. I mean, you've got the light doctor himself. Okay, we're in an environment where we're not, you know, in a position to be doing the one-on-ones, but obviously you're doing your live sessions. You've been doing them from your shed, which has been great, or your studio, I should call it. Sorry, but it's your shed, yeah. And plus, you have, as well as we have, made hours of content on the Photographer Academy on lighting, patterns, positioning, and obviously we're Elinchrom. So just by choice, as well as obviously being affiliated with them now, but we were Elinchrom before we were affiliated with them. So that's the place to go look. So if you haven't, I mean, you've just done that brand new series on the new ELBs. But obviously you've done the previous series with us, and of course we've got, if you haven't, so for those of you who use the Academy and you haven't come across them, if you put in the search box in the film Clock and Compass, which is the way Mark teaches lighting patterns, starting out with 1 light, 2 light, 3 light, 4 light, and building them up, that is the perfect place to start your training. So if you're not an Academy member, which I think you are, I know you know already, that's the best place. And of course the light doctor himself. Right, we're getting there, mate. Let's have a look. Right, some more. I'm going to be looking at doing location shots at the beach. Best recommendations on battery kits, so we're probably looking at the ELBs, right? Not the ELBs.
Yeah, ELB 500s. There is the Elinchrom ELB 500 is a 1 or 2 head kit, depending on whether you want to buy it as 1 or 2 lights. It gives you 500 watts of power, but it'll also go down to 5 watt seconds. So again, you can get the lighting very close and control the light and shoot at big wide apertures if you want to. So that is the new IGBT system. So it does manual, it does TTL, it does high sync or high speed sync because it's IGBT, and that's the kit there. I know that there's a few of the older ELB 400 kits around, and if you're interested in those, they're a little bit cheaper, but drop me a message and I'll point you in the right direction. I know there's a couple of those kits around at the moment as well, so that could be a better way of getting into the system and saving yourself some money. That's an HS, so you basically need the unit with high sync heads, because each head did a different job on the full flash curve technology. But you know, I know the Flash Centre have got some kits around, but as I say, if you're interested in that type of thing, drop me a message and I could talk you through in more detail one-to-one, no problem at all.
I obviously, like you said, you're not been in the office for a bit. Rough. Try again, mate. Sorry, rough costings on those.
The ELB 500 is around about 1400, 1500 quid for a one head set, 1750-ish for a two head set. But the 400s are a bit cheaper. They're sort of sub £1,000. So still a very, very good unit, and I use them for, well, for the length of time they're out, fifth generation, before they were discontinued, and they used to come all over Europe with me on planes, and spend quite a lot of time on beaches with me, and absolutely superb bit of kit. So it depends on your budget. You can buy an X demo or a used one for that. There's no new ones available, I don't think. But the $14.99, I think, for the ELB 500 one head kit, and $17.49 for the two head kit.
Brilliant, mate. We're almost there. I'm gonna interpret this as I think it's meant. They can correct me if I'm wrong. With the continuous light feature on a lot of the Elinchroms, do you use that a lot?
Do you know what? I use it for the purpose it's designed for. I use it as a modeling lamp to show me where my light is going and where the drop off is, where my shadows are, where the catch lights are going. I use it for the intended reason that unit has a built-in continuous light. I have used it as a fill light, and again, I think there's a video on your system using the ELB 1200, which has a very good 92 CRI LED light. There's a 90 CRI in the 500, so just slightly dimmer, but it's equivalent of about 250 watts of halogen. So it's a nice bright light, and you can use it. I think I've got a shot of Kelsey on one of the videos, posted by one of your stained glass windows, and just filling with the LED daylight balance modeling lamp on a longer exposure, because obviously it's not as bright as the flash. So I believe from memory it was about a 30th or a 60th of a second, but just relieving some of the shadows that were caused by the sun streaming through the stained glass windows in your studio. So the answer is yes, but I tend to use it more for what my light is doing rather than to fill anything, but you can do that as well.
I think that's a really good point, and I was going to bring it up if we didn't mention it. We once, it seems like an age away, when demonstrating at the photography show, we did a full session with an LED continuous light just on getting to understand lighting. So it wasn't about shooting that way. It's a great learning tool, isn't it? So you can see what it's going to do. I mean, it's going live later today. It's going to sound crazy, but Mark this week was walking the studio, well, his dog, but the studio dog Ebony, in the woods, in the park, sorry, where we normally take our location shoots for families, children, teens, and Mark, being Mark, with his iPhone, decided to take you a walk through the park, where he'd shoot and why. And he brought, and he literally just put his hand in front of the iPhone, moved it through the light so you can see the light pattern. So it's a great way to learn. That's going to be going live later today. It's called A Walk in the Park. So if you're interested on how Mark sees things and how he uses his locations, that'll be a good one to watch. I've literally got it ready to get launched this afternoon. But it's the way you see it, and I think that's really a great thing about the continuous light. And as you've also picked up a reason for using it in practicality as well, which is really good. Simon, we're almost there, mate. The question we've just been asked, I did say at the beginning, maybe you missed, if you haven't seen any of the previous sessions with Simon and the films that he's made for us, they are all available on the Photographer Academy. So simply go there. If you're not a member, I'm going to just advise you of the free membership again in a moment. Simon, there was loads of praise. I'm not going to keep blowing smoke. Nice one, mate. Appreciate it. We have been asked when you're back, hopefully in a few weeks. We've discussed earlier before, obviously you're just waiting to find out what's happening with the day job and restart and all this kind of stuff. So, yeah, he's not going away. I'm going to keep my hooks into this boy for quite a while, as he knows. So, well, as soon as we've got something in place, we'll let you know, guys. But hopefully, the next few weeks we'll have some. He's been doing these bi-weekly for us, but we're just obviously things are starting to change now with work and so on for all of us. So we'll keep you posted on that. But thank you, mate. Lots of praise still coming through on the panel there. But I'm going to stop the recording now, otherwise it's just going to sound like it's glory hour for you. To be fair.